All right, I'm going to get started, and I can show you this as we start. I wrote all of you a very heartfelt letter this morning that says, "Good morning. Sorry if this sounds like a bad excuse, but it's true. I left the flash drive with the Swift and the Android stuff on my kitchen table this morning." All right, so what I'm going to do instead is when I go home tonight, I've done a tic-tac-toe game in both Swift, and I ripped off one from Android. All right, then I made some changes too. It's almost the same game. I tried to come up with something that was pretty similar to one another, okay? So I will go and actually tape, hopefully I can do that in about an hour, the one in Swift when I get home. If I'm up to it, I'll do the other one also. I just don't know. I'm waiting for a call from my dentist. I'm having a lot of problems with a tooth that is broken. I don't know if you've ever gone through that or not, and when you get a broken tooth and you have hot or cold on it, how it feels. But I'm waiting for a call from him, so if the phone does ring anytime, I never turn my phone up, but it's turned up now because he's going to see if he can get me in early because I'm not supposed to get in until next month. This guy's booked out like 3 months in advance. So, all right. So, the other thing, just so you know, Blackhawk gives us 2 personal days that we can take off per year. Actually, they give us 4. You can take off 2 days for any reason, and you can take off 2 days, but they come out of your sick days, which I think is ridiculous, but that's the way they do it anyway. Last year, I didn't take any personal days. So my wife said to me, we're going up to see our daughter, and we're leaving Thursday. So I asked for a personal day on Thursday, okay? And I'm like, why do we have to do that? She said, because we normally come back on Sunday. We're coming back on Saturday because Sunday is Mother's Day. All right? So we're trying to be around for all 3 of our kids. All right. And since it's Mother's Day, it's her holiday, she gets to make the rules. So, and next week, I plan on going to Milwaukee for the day. All right? So I've asked off for Thursday, May 5th and Thursday, May 12th. To my knowledge, I have them both. Okay? Also, please remember, 2 weeks from Thursday, that's when you're required to be here and make those presentations. I'm not going to make you make presentations in the iOS class and in the Android class. I'm just going to make you make the presentations in the DIP class. So you have to be there that day. All right? If you've missed when we have presentations before, please do your best to make it. I realize there'll probably be 1 or 2 people who, from this list that's on here that won't be there. All right. A couple people I haven't seen much the whole semester. All right. For those of you who remember Holly, she's going to be here at 11 today with her baby. All right. So because she just had a baby, so she's going to be here sometime around 11 o'clock. So I'm going to have to meet with her. All right. But again, please remember regarding that. All right. As already mentioned, if you do go out to the P drive for the class, there is a folder with today's date on it. I'm going to go through some of that material, all right, with that's in that folder. Then what we're going to do, because I don't have anything else to do this weekend, I'm in the middle of building a to-do list. Remember, we've done the to-do list, and we've done it basically in Android, and we've done it in iOS. I'm doing it in Angular. So you can kind of see the differences and similarities between them. And I hope to have that done. That's what we will do next week on Tuesday in this class. The last week of classes, especially for second year people, the last week that we're here, will be lab for every class except when you're giving your presentations on the 19th. So it'll be lab. That whole Tuesday will be lab for every class. So I realize people like Ben that are making an effort to be here because they're taking off from work to be here. All right. That if you can't make it, it's okay. All right. Okay. I'm also supposed to mention this. It was interesting because I was giving a lecture yesterday, and in the class I gave the lecture in, there were at least 2 people who walked into class quite late, and they're people who very rarely come to class. What do I mean by very rarely? Well, I'd say if you come a third of the time, that's very rarely. Okay? But what I am supposed to be doing in all of the classes is making sure that everyone in here knows. First of all, no, you didn't have 6 assignments. You had 3 in here. They were all 3 of, the Uber Part 1, the Uber Part 2, and the Uber Part 3. So you had 6. Didn't have 6, you had 3. But that's 20% of your grade. All right. One of the people literally who came in yesterday, I went back and counted. So, if we look at that, this is, I think, week 14. All right. So if you meet twice a week, that's 28 classes, correct? Okay. One person has been there 8 times. And I think I'm being generous. I think I actually counted him as being here when he wasn't here a couple times. So the point is, when that, if let's assume that you miss well more than half, well, then you only get 10 out of those 20%. And if you have been here all the time, that's 20% you get over and above. And I realize with some of you, you've got personal stuff going on, you've got job commitments. I try to be as accommodating as I possibly can. All right. I'm going to ask that you do one thing for me. Not right now, but I'm going to ask that you do one thing for me. And honestly, believe me, this is more important to me than you would ever realize. That is that last week of class, I'm going to ask, as always, that you do course evaluations, but even more than that, if you would take for each class literally 2 or 3 minutes to write down what works and what doesn't work. All right? I mean, I'm really having, I've got a smart group, I think. You guys are a smart group, but I think I've got a smart group of first-year people. But the problem is, it's like yesterday. The 3 o'clock class, there's 17 people in there. There were 4 in here. That's a problem. All right? And I don't care what the reasons are. That is a problem. And I have people who are not coming to either class, yet I'm seeing them in the hallway on the same day we have classes. So I know they're here. And, maybe you say, because I've talked to my boss about this. She's actually of the mindset, that well, maybe you shouldn't be taping your classes. All right, maybe that's the problem, because if you tape them, then people feel like they don't have to come. All right, but I was talking to the class yesterday, and I'll say the same thing to you if I've never said this before. This is my idea of teaching, seriously, that there are teachers that if you have a student who's really, really talented, doesn't matter how much the teacher sucks, because the student is still going to go and do a good job and is still going to succeed. That's just the way it is. If you've got a student who's more on the side where they need a lot of help, and with some students, no matter how much help you give them, those are the ones that typically, for lack of better words, wash out after the first semester, because you keep giving them help and giving them help and giving it, and they're not picking up the stuff. So no matter how good the teacher is, the student doesn't succeed. All right, but I look at my job is and one of the reasons I tape is to take students who are BC students and change them to AB students. And I have had students who've gone through the program who have gotten jobs who have told me if I didn't watch some of these tapes 4 or 5 times, it wouldn't make any sense to me. Everybody's different. Some of you can sit in here and absorb. You're sponges. You can just absorb it. You have no problem doing that. All right. Other people have work commitments or whatever. You got stuff on your mind. Some people are taking notes like crazy and maybe not really listening at that time, so they rewatch it. That's why I tape. All right. I don't plan on changing that. I don't think that is the problem. Maybe, and I'm being serious, maybe the problem's me. Maybe I just need to be saying the first day of class. This, I don't know if you remember this, but this is actually, if you look at that, I'm not going to read it to you. But what I am supposed to be doing is if a student misses more than 3 days in a row, I'm supposed to be contacting student services. And student services is then supposed to contact the student. And if they don't, get back and they miss another class or 2, they're supposed to be dropped. And if I did that, there would probably be about 5 students who are the first year students right now, if not 6, that would be dropped. That's a third of the students. All right. So let's take a look at some of the stuff that's in the folder for today. All right. So I've got it out right here already. And like I said, I should have thought better about this. I didn't. But, so I'm going to show you code today, but I plan on next week having us actually code in class. All right? Now, I wanted to show you 3 articles that I found online. First one is called 5 Awesome Angular Features. I'm not going to go through any of it, all right? But they talk about what's cool about Angular. One is this two-way data binding. If you say I don't know what that is, hopefully you'll know by the end of the period, all right? And they give an example. Number 2 are setting up templates. Number 3 is that whole idea of model view controller. There's more in here if you still need to read more about model view controller. Number 4, something that we haven't gone over in here because it's an advanced topic in Angular, that's called dependency injection. Finally, number 5, we have gone over these, directives. You've seen directives. Anything that starts with ng like that, that's a directive. So you've seen that stuff. All right, so that's for something else. I'm going to go through a couple of these examples with you in just a minute. Learn AngularJS with these 5 practical examples. And I'm going to go over the navigation one with you, and quickly the inline editor, which is kind of a dumb example, the order form, and the instant search. I don't understand how to use the switchable grid, maybe because I didn't read it well enough. But we're going to go over that in just a minute. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you is this article that's right here. It says AngularJS, the next big thing. All right? And if you look in the bottom left-hand corner here, you'll notice it's not a small article. It's 54 pages long. All right? And it's written, it looks like, by Robin Rizvi. A lot of people who write for Code Project appear to be people of foreign ancestry. And I don't say that to belittle them. They're unbelievably talented people. But sometimes you'll see a lot of spelling errors and stuff in there, just so you know. I don't think it's my responsibility to go in there and if somebody spells something wrong, to go in there and change it. Because it's their document. But that's why I just wanted to mention that to you. You know, in AngularJS, the JS is supposed to be capitalized. They didn't do it. But there is such good material in there, in this article. They talk about why you should use Angular. They give you a picture and they talk about the key features of Angular. You've seen this picture before when we went over that video. But they talk, again, two-way data binding. Unfortunately, it's the only page that was too big to be put on the page. They talk about templates, more about model view controller. So you see there's much of it that we've already gone over. But if you're still fuzzy about this stuff, all right, in the future, there's probably a chance that, I don't know, that we may have to either add another class or change a class around. We might have to do a class in Angular. All right? The biggest thing that you get with Angular, if you weren't aware of this, the biggest thing that you do get with it is you get stuff quickly. And it's easy to sit there and create something. Now, you saw this example. All right? You've already seen that one. So I'm not going to go through that one, but you've seen it already. All right? If I start looking in here, here's a math example. Now, notice there's math.html. All that's in here is an HTML file. So all of the logic for this whole program is put in this file. There's no CSS, and all the logic is put right here. Well, hopefully that says a couple things to you. First of all, it'll probably be ugly when it runs because there's no CSS. And second of all, I'm kind of breaking one of the rules here because what we're supposed to have is we're supposed to have our logic, our controller in JS files. We're supposed to have our presentation or our view, all right, that's supposed to be in our CSS file. And our model is kind of mixed into it. But what I'm telling you is normally we wouldn't put this much logic in here. But just to show you how simple it is to do it. Now, a couple things about this. And hopefully by now, let me make that a little bigger. Hopefully by now, this is a little bit review for you because we've already looked at it. All right, remember, anytime you start something with ng dash, that means it's an Angular directive. So that means this app starts here and it ends with the corresponding tag, which means it's down here. Now, did we have to do that? No. I could have taken the ng app that's right there and I could have put it right here. That might have been a better thing to do. All right? And you might say, why? Because it's possible to have more than one of these app directives in the same file. So really, it probably would have been cleaner, but this isn't my code. All right, this is from those 5 examples that I mentioned to you. All right, so if we look in here, there's one directive right there. Here's another directive. This says our model. When you think model, think data. This is a real simple example because all we have in here are 2 text boxes. That's it. One called num1, one called num2. And as we put information in there, we're going to add the values in those 2 text boxes, and we're going to multiply the value in those 2 text boxes. Does that make sense? All right, so really, like I said, go ahead.
Yeah, just to go back to what you said before this, when you said one should be in the CSS, one should be in the JS, what exactly would we put in the CSS? And I can understand what we should know in Java, but as far as like, you would input like input type number.
Okay, what should go in the CSS? Maybe it would help to show you it here. Okay? See what that's missing? You know, I could have put it in a table, I could have done something else, but I could line that up, I could change the fonts, I could do whatever I wanted to do.
I thought you were talking about putting the actual input tag.
No, that's it. So if I come in here and I put in 34, and I come in here and I put in 26, it's pretty obvious what happened. And it's immediate. So if you create something, and the something that you create for a user, you want immediate output, this is a way of doing it. And again, you might say, well, big deal. We've seen it doing this. We've seen it doing it. Yeah, this is all being done, virtually all being done on the client side. All right. With some of the work that you do with AngularJS, you need to have it on a server. This isn't one of those. I have one file. It's an HTML file. There is no other way that I know of that you're going to get input that fast without using some server-side thing, and it's going to be slower because you got to send it to the server's got to manipulate it, the server's got to send it back again. All right, so that's a pretty simple example. Look at a couple more of these here just so you can see them. And some of them are kind of offshoots. So if we look in here, in fact, let's run this. So it doesn't look any different. Well, again, all right, same output, but let's talk about what's different in here. Now, this is typically what you would end up. Notice what we've done. We've taken the logic and we've moved the logic from the HTML file to the JS file. That makes sense? And it's in our what? It's in our controller. The controller starts here, and look where it ends. Now, this should look pretty familiar to you, no pun intended, but that's kind of like what we've been doing inside of a constructor in Java. All right? And when we set this up, this can be as simple or as complex as we need it to be. And again, this was their code. I wouldn't have written it like this. I would have done this just because to me this is much cleaner to look at it this way. You might not agree, okay? But I do want to mention a couple things to you here, at least so you've heard them. All right? This is called an anonymous function right here. Why is it anonymous? Because it doesn't have a name. All right? And all we're doing is returning num1 and num2, okay? And again, I think there should be, that's how I would have written it. Now, I'm not saying mine's better or mine's worse than theirs, but just so you see it. And when you go and you look at the math now in here, okay, you say, well, it's still the same. No, we're just reproducing the answer right there, okay? But we're doing the actual work inside of here. So we've got a controller that we've set up with this now. In fact, this is the old one. All right, it's not the new one. Okay? All right. If we wanted to do this, first of all, why am I getting NAN right now? Why am I getting that?
It's not a number.
Yeah, but why am I getting it there? Why am I not getting it all over? Because technically 0 divided by 0 is infinity, which can't be expressed as a number. That's why you're getting the NAN. But again, if I come in here, all right, again, immediate feedback. All right. Now, some of the other examples that are in here, examples 4, 5, and 6, again, I pulled the ones I'm going to show you right now. I pulled them right directly from this article that's called Learn AngularJS with these 5 practical examples. All right. And I'm not going to apologize for this, but I'm telling you personally, if any of you, when you graduate, if you go and answer a job and it's for an AngularJS programmer, good luck to you. And I don't mean that to be mean or to sound sarcastic or anything else. You've been introduced to this. All right. Even if you had an intro class in it, you sure wouldn't be experts. You'd be more expert than you are, but you wouldn't be experts. All right. So if we look at these next couple of examples here, this one. All right. Notice what happens when I click on any of these. This was meant to kind of look like the Uber. So I chose home, and you can see how the color changes. Okay, when I did the first one at least. All right, is that pretty self-explanatory as far as what's happening right there? All right, and again, I know you get it already, Luke, but to a little bit more towards that. All right, that's where you put the CSS in. All right, and when you look in here, again, the key thing is, if I bring up index, we're doing everything in line. There's really not that much in here. One of the reasons I went with this is this guy actually put comments in here. There's so much frickin' code that's out there on the system that people have put in, and some of it's good, really good. And by and large, the code that's the best, all right, by and large, the code that's the best, people comment the worst. And that's not always true, but that usually is. I meant to keep this yesterday, and I didn't, but I showed this to the students. I got sent this link yesterday, and it had famous programming quotes on it. So I decided what the heck I would look at them, and there were about a dozen of them. But one of them, you ever heard that old saying, teach a person to fish type of an idea? You give them a meal, etc. This one was, show a person a program, you'll frustrate them for a day. Teach a person a program, you'll frustrate them for a lifetime.
Yeah, buddy.
And which I thought, actually, it's a little sarcastic or whatever, but there is some truth to that. Because one thing for the people that I've encountered over my life that are the most, probably the best programmers or the best IT people, are people who are basically, for lack of better words, are never satisfied. They'll do something and people go, that's really good. Yeah, it's still got a ways to go. When other people look at it and go, what does that mean? It looks like it's perfect. No, you never accept that anything's perfect. All right? But you'll see again, there's our NG app. Hopefully you remember this. This is NG click. That means if we put a button and we click the button, that's what's going to happen. Now, you may or may not remember this. $event.prevent default. If I go and click in here, if I go and click on any of those hyperlinks, by default, it tries to go to that page. By default, it's what it does. So I'm telling it, no. Whatever the default is, don't do it. All right? Do you see this? Because notice here it says nav. See that? Class equal active. That's the key to this program. That line right there. Because where it says class equal active, notice class home, class about, class HTML5, class JavaScript, class jQuery. So what it's doing in there when it finds this is it's equating right there with whatever is in this class. And it's saying what I want is when I click on one of them, that class should be active. And not only should it be active, don't make it go anywhere. Just produce the results, which is what we're doing. That's it. So again, the example is pretty simple, but there's a lot of cool stuff in it. Much like the next example that's here. Example 5. All right. In fact, I'm going to use, mine doesn't work. This is, oh, that's this one. I can do that, and that's the one that had a, it has a simple editor in it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go out there and let's see. Did I grab their code also? Okay, I thought that I grabbed it. I'm going to grab it right now. So if you went and copied stuff from the folder, you might want to go back and recopy it because you should have this too, that AngularJS examples. I'm even going to extract it right here. All right. These are the 5 examples. I've already shown you the navigation menu. All right. And there's also that inline editor, which is not that big a thing. But this is what's, to me at least, this is what's cool in here. All right. Now, there's a couple things. First of all, by default, when I brought this up, web development was green. And it's probably just green because it's the first one. But none of them have to be green. All right, but this one is. Notice when I click on any of them, 2 things happen. Turns green, and the total gets added down here. Every time I click on it again, it turns red, and the total gets decremented. Does that make sense? All right. But you're getting it in real time. So imagine that you were creating some kind of an app, and in that app, you were having people register for a conference or something using a form. All right. And maybe, you had like the pre-conference, and then you want to sign up for this, this, or this. You could immediately do this, get all that stuff, maybe through here, if you had a bigger form or another form, get their information and quickly create a bill for them. All right. And again, when you do that, you're doing it in real time. Now, hopefully what you remember, we talked about this a little bit in here, is right there. That's kind of the key to the program right there. We're using that ng repeat. What we are doing in here, this is an unordered list right there. And everything that you see right now that's in red is a list item. All right? And we're actually building that right in here. Also, we're telling it to come through, and you may or may not remember this from the first day we talked about this stuff, but we're figuring out the total, and then we're filtering it and telling it to give it to an answer in currency. So these examples, I thought, did a nice job of kind of demonstrating, all right, the different stuff that's in here. Okay, and the last thing I'd say is, again, you're going to hear this from me more than once, and that is, please make sure that on the last week of class, on that Thursday or whatever, that you come in here, do course evaluations, be critical. I have had people in this room, I'm not going to look at anybody, I'm not going to say anything to anybody, but I have people in this room who have talked to me offline and have said, I didn't like that last semester when you kind of did the programs and then explained them as you were doing them. I didn't think that was fair to those of us who did the programs. That's a pretty fair comment, to be honest with you. All right? Now, maybe you feel the other way too, and I get that. But please, like I said, do course evaluations. And even if they're all terrible, I'd rather do that and learn from them, all right, than not get any course evaluations at all. All right? So, didn't take that long, but that's really all I had for the period. So again, I'm sorry, but the other 2 classes will be lab. All right?